Good evening and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. I'm Lisa Friend and I'm delighted to be your host this evening and one half of the panel as we blitz our way through Italy. So, Robyn, I just wanted to share something with our viewers that maybe you haven't seen in a while.
Oh,
Robyn, we've done a fair bit of international meetups. We've enjoyed meals in places like Venice and Paris. We've had concerts in Canada, and I have to say that I have always respected you as a colleague and enjoyed my time with you as a friend. So it is a pleasure to have you on Monday Night Travel again.
it's a pleasure to be here.
So we are starting in the south of Italy and working our way north, which is a great plan for those of you that have spring travels. I would plan on hitting Naples for Easter if you want the pageantry, or right after Easter if you want to be at the beginning of their season without the heat and without the height of the crowds, but still have everything be open. If you were traveling in the fall, I would reverse this and start in the north and work my way south. We are celebrating our Naples and the Amalfi Coast guidebook that just came out in the last 2 weeks. And I have to say that I find it to be one of the most helpful guidebooks that we write. And I'll say this because we are talking about a region with so many important sites and with so many different ways to get around: ferries, subways, buses, trains, and boats as well as ferries. So the book lays out all of your options with hard opinions and helps you wrap your head around your travels here in Naples and down the Amalfi Coast. So let's whet our appetite for Naples with a short clip from Rick's show.
Tense and urban scene as anything you'll find in Western Europe. Yet it still somehow manages to breathe, laugh, and sing with a captivating Italian accent. You name it, it occurs right on the streets today as it has for centuries. Kids turn a wide spot in the sidewalk into a soccer field. Walls are crusty with posters and death announcements. Neighborly chit-chat and heated arguments take place curbside. Plastic buckets help Grandma do business with the delivery boy. It's a cauldron of community as everyone's out and about. And fast food, it comes in the form of a folded pizza.
So I want to back up one slide. I want to say that I really like Southern Italy. I have been there many times, and I appreciate that Southern Italy, including Naples, fulfills my childhood stereotypes of Italy. And I mean that in a very positive way, but we're talking about these stereotypes of super friendly, boisterous people, loud, chaotic, but celebrating their life and celebrating their life on the street as well. So Naples is a densely populated city, and that makes the street life so vibrant. People are out living in the streets. They don't want to be cooped up in their small apartments in the city center. Naples also invented the pizza, for which I am profoundly grateful. And Naples has some of the best tomatoes anywhere in the world for the most delicious insalata caprese. Insalata caprese means the salad from Capri. And the tomatoes grow especially well in the area around Naples because of the volcanic soil of Mount Vesuvius. So while many people think of visiting Naples only as an adjunct to visiting Pompeii, it's important, of course, to visit the Archaeological Museum and to see the famous works that were discovered after the 1830 excavation. So such as what we have here on the screen, which is the Dancing Faun, and also this fresco that depicts Pompeii before it blew its top. So it's still pointy. Naples has a lot of charms and a lot of sights that most tourists miss. So we're going to talk about some of those tonight. It's important to remember that Naples was the seat of a kingdom for over 5.5 centuries. And there are beautiful sights from this period, such as the Capodimonte Museum. Once it was the summer palace of the royal family, but then became a museum, and it houses masterful works by Michelangelo, Raphael, Caravaggio, and Titian, including these three papal portraits, with a fraction of the crowds that would be in front of these masterpieces if you were in Rome or in Paris. So they have also in Naples churches from the Baroque period that rival those that you would find in Rome, elegant piazzas, and a modern underground transportation system. This is the Toledo. I don't know how to say it because I don't know if they say it like an American or a Spaniard. Toledo station of the subway in Naples. And the new guidebook lets us know that contactless or tap to pay system now works on Metro Line 1, the funiculars, and the Circumvesuviana train. And I have to say specifically that I love using my watch for contactless or tap to pay because it means that my credit cards and my phone are not vulnerable to pickpockets. They're stowed away safely in my money belt. So, but now we have to say good night to Naples and head south to the coast with Robyn. And she is an actual guidebook researcher, a job that most people think they want until they find out what it's really like. And we're going to do that tonight.
We are. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the great things about our guidebooks is that you have real live people going and checking out every single hotel, every single restaurant, every single site to make sure that we're giving you the latest tips to maximize your time and your efficiency and your vacation, and also give you some of the joy that we find in the history and the culture and the food, particularly.
Okay, where are we going now?
Oh, yeah. So we are going to see a clip from one of our colleague researchers, Travis, who's going to show us what a typical day in the life of a researcher looks like.
And you'll say it's legit, right? What he's saying is legit.
Rick Steves' guidebooks are updated by a cohort of researchers who spend over 300 days a year in Europe. Here's what a typical day in the life of one looks like. I'm updating Kinsale, a port town in the south of Ireland with great history and colorful charm that's a recommended stop in the Rick Steves Ireland guidebook. Around 7:30 a.m., I wake up, get dressed, and, over breakfast and plenty of coffee, go over what's in store today. While the home office has given me a few things to look out for, my primary goal is to live the book as a traveler would, meaning I've prearranged a few things, but mostly I want to experience this town as if I've just arrived. I start with the self-guided walk, a staple of Rick Steves' books, following the instructions and explanations exactly as written. If something has changed or is hard to understand, I amend it accordingly. Then it's on to sights. I visit everything, chatting with docents at historic ruins, visiting evocative churches, and exploring museums big and small to make sure our write-ups are not only accurate, but engaging. After a quick lunch on the go, I check in on our recommended hotels. At each, I go inside, meet the hosts, and am led through their spaces and rooms while always looking for comfort, cleanliness, and a personal touch. In the late afternoon, I meet with a local guide who alerts me to changes that have happened since the last researcher visited and shares any other insight that might benefit our coverage. Then it's dinner time, and I'm off to check in on our recommended restaurants. This ranges from food trucks to fancier places and restaurants that are next door to one another to ones that are quite far away. But I visit all of them, reviewing menus, chatting with staff, and making sure their vibes are welcoming and authentic. Finally, I pop by our pub and nightlife listings, but keep an eye out for any new fun spots our travelers might enjoy after a meal. Then I return to my hotel room where I spend the next hour or two typing up my notes from the day before calling it quits and getting ready to head somewhere new tomorrow.
So, Robyn, was that accurate, his description of a day in the life of a guidebook researcher?
Yeah, it really is. And I think the thing that you realize when you're on the ground doing a work like this is that you have to pretend like it's your first time to a place. And we want to make all the mistakes so that once you have the guidebook in your hands, those mistakes are done. So we can warn you away from them. And since we're celebrating these two great new books, we wanted to give you a little peek at what it's like being a researcher. We are moving on, and I think Travis did a great job showing what a day in the life of a guidebook researcher looks like. And for the new Naples and Amalfi Coast book, our lovely colleague Rosie, who works as an editor here, took on the challenge of researching and updating and adding some new tips and destinations along the Amalfi Coast for you. And one of the things that she helped add is a new chapter on the island of Procida, which is less than an hour by boat from Naples, we were just talking about with Lisa. And Procida is a pretty and pastel island. It's an ideal destination for a peaceful island break from the hustle and bustle of Naples. It has a humble fishing port and it has a lot of sleepy beaches as well. It's just under 2 square miles in size, and it has about 10,000 people as a population. It's just perfect place for strolling, taking photos, savoring gelato, and marveling at these beautiful townscape that hides behind its main port. It's also been an inspiration to filmmakers who find this picture-perfect backdrop to tell their stories, like The Talented Mr. Ripley and The Il Postino, which were both filmed here. It's a fine, off-the-beaten-path island life alternative to the crowded Capri, which I'll talk about in a moment. And while it can still feel sleepy most of the year, during July and August, it's a very popular place for locals to vacation, so it's always important to book your rooms well in advance. So if you're looking for a vacation from your vacation along the Amalfi Coast, you can consider giving it 2 nights and a full day. And as Lisa mentioned, in our book, we really do our best to help you prioritize and plan your time. So you'll see our recommendations for what are must-sees and how long to spend in each of those places, like you can see on this map here. So for this part of the Amalfi Coast, we say you definitely want to spend 1 to 2 days along the Amalfi Coast exploring the stretch from Sorrento to Salerno. And actually, one of the new things is from Rome, there is a high-speed train that connects you directly to Salerno, bypassing Naples. So if you're really interested in focusing more on the towns south of Naples, that's definitely a good option for you. And then as far as the try hard to see destinations, we include a half-day excursion to Pompeii and a day on Capri. And then the worthwhile stops in this area include Sorrento and Paestum.
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
And you go, I just wanted to tell our viewers that this map is basically one half of our Southern Italy tour.
It is. So if you don't want to do this on your own, just check out that Southern Italy tour, which starts in Rome, actually. But we're going to start off in Sorrento, which is about an hour south of Naples. And Sorrento is both a busy port and a pleasant resort town featuring lemon-scented lanes, grand views over the Bay of Naples, and a good selection of hotels and restaurants. So that makes it an ideal home base for your time in the area, and you could easily fill 2 to 4 days, including some of those day trips. It comes with lively bars, interesting sites like the newly added Sorrento Experience Museum that tells the story of the town, and a lovely pedestrian old quarter. It's also absolutely the gateway to the Amalfi Coast. And in the past, we've often recommended using local buses or hiring drivers to get you from town to town. But now, overall, we're adding more emphasis on taking those boats between towns. And that's really due to buses being overcrowded, less reliable, and lots of frequent traffic jams on the road. But boat service, while it's a little more expensive, it's definitely faster, it's more comfortable, and it's more reliable with no traffic to worry about. You'll find ferry companies serve most of the coastal towns, and they sell tickets right at the ferry dock, and there's no need to book in advance, which is another bonus.
That's nice.
So we're heading south along the coast to Positano. Beautiful, big prices. It lures travelers with what Rick likes to say, Sophia Loren dreams. And this overnight historically has been our pick for the must-see, most scenic stop. And that's thanks to its stunning scenery and beaches. It's kind of the quintessential coastal town. When you think of Amalfi Coast, you think of Positano. It's touristy, it's chic, it's picturesque. And with these beaches and promenades that are just made for relaxation. And thanks to its appeal, it's become very popular and expensive. And as you can imagine, anything this beautiful comes with crowds. And to give you an idea of just how crowded it is, Positano has 4,000 residents, and on average, 12,000 tourists visit daily between Easter and October. Another reason, as Lisa was saying, that you could consider going before Easter to avoid all of that. But the real magic of Positano, if you're going to go there, is it hits after dark. It gives you the best glimpse of local flavor when all the day trippers have left and that golden hour settles in. And I know, Lisa, we were talking earlier, like you love a good evening sunset photo, and you will get the absolute best from Positano. And we've done our best to recommend some other activities, back lanes, and town walks that will get you off the beaten path during the busy part of the day. But now I want to clue you in on two brand new destinations for you to consider, maybe instead of Positano or maybe in addition to it, and then you can decide which you like the best. So the towns of Minori and Maori, about a 10-minute ride south of Amalfi, and they somehow have stayed under this mass tourism radar. They're true workaday backdoor towns. And while that might turn some travelers away who are looking for that glitz and glamour, for others, it's the perfect antidote to Positano and Capri. And these two towns are quickly becoming a new favorite around here. For half the costs and half the crowds, you'll double your enjoyment. That's what Rick likes to say. It's great for strolling, gelato, relaxing. It's easy to connect to other towns. And obviously, in our book, literally everything in these sections are brand new. We don't even really have that many photos yet. That's just how hot off the press and new these destinations are. But I can tell you, if you're wandering the streets and enjoying life as a local, the evening passeggiata is just as appealing here as it is in neighboring towns. In Minori specifically, you could consider visiting its first century Roman villa, which is unique for its preserved mosaic floor and this Roman garden. The villa was buried in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. We're going to hear that word a lot tonight. It was only discovered by chance in 1932 and then excavated and only to be reburied again in 1954. So this is kind of the big thing in Minori. And of course, as with any new guidebook destinations, it comes the challenge of the researchers that we do our best to find the best things to treat yourself with. And this is one example of a pasticceria, a pastry shop, Sal di Riso. It's in Minori and it made it into the book because you just have to stop here and enjoy a nice pastry with your coffee. And again, it might not be as famous as Positano or Amalfi, but it has amazing beaches, less crowded, and in fact, Maori has the longest beach in the Amalfi Coast. And as a bonus, there's a 45-minute hike you can take between Minori and Maori called the Path of the Lemons. And it takes you up and over the hill that separates the two towns, and it gives you scenic vistas, and you can even stop along the way at a lemon farm.
I have a question.
Yes, Lisa.
Would that be similar? Would the Path of the Lemons be similar for people who've done the hikes in
the Cinque Terre? Exactly. I think a little less strenuous than you would say like the Monte Rosa to Vernazza hike is, but along those regards, like you take it slow, you enjoy. The point is not to get there fast. The point is to just enjoy along the way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. And then, of course, moving on to Capri. So this was once the vacation hideaway of Roman emperors, and today, again, known for those stunning views, the blue grotto, amazing blue water. And along with that, it has the cliff-topping upper town of Capri, and that's more interesting and less chaotic than the island's namesake town of Capri. And this is easily, you could spend a half a day up in Capri. You could visit the San Michele Baroque church with its tiled floor. And then it also has that main town of Capri, which is more for shopping and tourist things. So if your heart is set on visiting Capri, we do have some travel hacks and backdoor escapes that might come in handy to avoid those crowds. And if we're talking about Capri, we got to talk about the Blue Grotto. I like to compare it to riding a gondola in Venice. It is just something that is always going to be a popular tourist activity. And similar to gondolas, also expensive, figure 50 to 60 euros. And you're going to probably wait about an hour and a half or 2 hours in line just to get in, and you spend less than 5 minutes inside. So figure, a 4-hour total round trip affair to go inside the grotto for about 5 minutes.
Oh, 5 minutes. I thought you said earlier 1 minute, and I was like, oh no, 5 minutes.
I'm trying to be generous here. So, but instead of that, or maybe on top of that, we now recommend taking a 1 hour around the island boat cruise that doesn't stop at the crowded Blue Grotto, but it's perhaps more enjoyable or just enjoyable in a different way. Or alternatively, we've also included an option for travelers to catch an early boat to the Blue Grotto, hopefully avoiding those long lines. Skip that circle around the island tour and just catch a bus directly to Capri, so you can hopefully escape the crowds up there too. So you got to pay attention to those tips and tricks that we have scattered throughout the guidebooks. And moving on to one of those try hard to see attractions along the Amalfi Coast, a visit to Pompeii, which Lisa alluded to. This is the town that was frozen in time in AD 79 thanks to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which you see in the background here. And it left behind these ruins, giving us a look at what life in Italy would have been like 2,000 years ago. We give the site full coverage in our latest update, and the newest news or tips on visiting is that now the site caps the number of visitors. So in peak season, April through October, it's very smart to book in advance because tickets are on a timed entry and they will be limited. So if you don't have a ticket in advance and you turn up there, you might not be able to get in, and that's a real disappointment. So definitely plan ahead for that. And I'm just going to pitch here, like any ruin or ancient sites, investing in a local guide or using one of our audio tours is really going to bring depth to this place and make it come alive. Because otherwise you can kind of feel like you're just walking around looking at piles of rocks or piles of rubble and not really understanding why it's so important. So check in our guidebook. We've got some great tours and guides listed in there. And we have a downloadable audio tour that you can find on our website. And finally, we have Pestum, which also gets full coverage in our new book. And it's worthwhile on, I would say, like a week or a longer stay. The archaeological park here at Pestum gives you one of the best collections of Greek temples anywhere, dating from around 6th century BC. So Pestum, the town, became a stop along an important trade route as a seaport. And you have to think, the ocean is about a mile away today. So this was the seaport back in the 6th century. And because it was conquered by the Romans in the 3rd century, it also has an impressive handful of Roman structures as well. So only about a third of the site has been excavated, but archaeologists believe that at its heyday, it had a population of about 7,000 people. And the Greek ruins you see here have stood for more than 2,500 years. And I'm just always just impressed by the scale and the size of ruins, and also thinking about who walked here, like who lived here 2,500 years ago in history that would have traveled these same paths. And I don't know about you, Lisa, but I also just wish that maybe I'll find like one coin. They're always finding hordes of coins. I'm like, I gotta find one coin on one of my adventures.
Just one coin.
Yeah.
Wow, Robyn, thank you for that beautiful explanation of the Amalfi Coast. But you have to keep working.
I know.
It's time for you to keep going. So
It sure is.
where are we headed now?
Now we're headed north. We're going to start with Rome, which is a favorite place of mine. In fact, I just did the last edition of the Rome guidebook. I followed Rick there. So we're going to get a little more day in the life of a researcher tips and tricks in here. But for years, one of our best-selling tours has been the Venice, Florence, and Rome tour, Italy's 3 best cities in 10 days. And now we have a book dedicated to just those cities, and I absolutely love that. And I also love that each city, Venice, Florence, and Rome, is unique and individual, and they have their own significance in history. So I'm really excited that we get to dive in here. And, I'm going to just say Rick loves to say that Rome is magnificent and overwhelming all at the same time, which I totally agree with. And I think Lisa would also agree with that. But the Italian term for it is bella chaos. It's beautiful and chaotic. And as a researcher, I have to say it's sort of a nightmare to update a place like Rome because major sites just constantly adjust the way that they operate. One day a site has lines wrapped around the block, and the next day you can book ahead to skip the entrance, and everything is always constantly changing, bella chaos. But a great resource for any trip, especially for Italy, is to check out our guidebook updates webpage, which are regularly updated with anything as we learn new information. So between when books are printed, we'll always put the latest information there. So that is just definitely something that you want to check. And Rome gets a bad rap for being crowded, but I have to say it's always been crowded. It has always been a melting pot since the Roman Empire. And overall, sites are doing the best that they can to tolerate more infrastructure, more tourism. And what's really helped with that is timed entry tickets. And on top of that, we do our best to give you the latest tips and tricks that help you maximize your experience and offer alternative sites that are just as impressive, like some of the ones you were talking about in Naples that would totally apply to Rome as well. But for example, there is a new entrance to the Forum that sprang up overnight while I was there. And instead of waiting in a long line to enter near the Colosseum, you can now enter through Trajan's Imperial Forum, which is practically crowd-free and you can explore there.
So I was in Rome on October 10th and 11th, and this was not open. This was not nobody was talking about it. And then you were there just a couple weeks ago, and
Yep. And then from the Imperial Forum, you can actually use this subterranean tunnel
That's
that
awesome.
connects the Roman Forum. Yeah, it's so cool to take this tunnel as well. Okay, St. Peter's Basilica, we got to talk about this. It's another one of those that has changed, I think partly due to the Jubilee year. It's changing again. It's still free to enter, but now there's an option where you can book ahead, €7. You get a timed entry ticket that guarantees you to enter at a certain time instead of waiting in those notoriously long lines. And we've also learned just recently that we can reserve a time to climb the dome as well. So that will save you time and stress. It's not fun standing in those long lines.
no.
The Pantheon, also another one that requires a timed entrance ticket, but this one costs €5. It used to be free, now it's €5, and you can book a spot in advance. There's some debate about if you really need to book a spot in advance or if you can just show up. Technically, you can show up and you can wait in line. And our hack or our tip or our trick for that is if you don't book ahead and you show up and there's a long line, you'll see in this image there are two kiosks or there's like a line of people waiting at those kiosks. That's where they're signing up. But you could also just stand in line and get on your mobile device if you have data, international data, and you can book your entrance just while you're waiting in line. So by the time you get to the front of the line, you got your QR code, you can show them and you're in. So book in advance, don't book in advance. This one's a toss up. It's going to cost you money either way. So you can risk it and just sign up when you get there. Worst case scenario.
I would say, having been to the Pantheon 5 times this year, that it also depends on what time of day you show
Yeah.
up. So if you're there first thing in the morning and you wanted to keep your flexibility, I'd say just go up and the line's not going to be that long. If it's more than 10 minutes long, send your friend over to Cafe Tazzo d'Oro just around, get an espresso granita. By the time they come back with that fantastic coffee slushy, you'll be ready to slug it down and go in. You'll get a brain freeze, though.
Oh, I love it.
I love that.
That's a great tip. Thanks, Lisa. And the Trevi Fountain is another one that has changed, and now they control how many people can be in that lower bowl at a time. You can still view the fountain from the upper area any time of day, but if you want to get that up close and personal to toss your coin into the fountain, you're going to need to line up. And I know, Lisa, you were just there and you have some experience with this as well. One of those things you probably don't have to worry about too much.
No, so again, after 9 p.m., though, that line, they take down the stanchions and people will flood into that situation just like before. But I took 5 groups to Rome this year, and I think people don't really understand how the line works. So I just was a little bit, as we say in Italy, politely aggressive. And I got my people in line, and we waited less than 10 minutes. And then we were down there because they only let 400 people at a time into that lower basin. And it was worth it.
Okay, so sounds like it's pretty smooth as long as you just belly up to the line.
As long as you have to, you can't just go, oh, are you in line? Are you in line? Like, you need to go up to the guy in the vest and say, where's the line?
Bella chaos. And, Rome is a city layered with tangled ruins, and one of the latest to open to the public, you can actually walk through now, is the Largo Argentina, and this is the site that's between the Forum and the Campo di Fiori. And for years, this was basically a cat sanctuary / overgrown sacred site sitting along a major thoroughfare that you could just kind of walk by at street level. But now you can get up close and personal with the temples. And the temple of note here is the Curia of Pompeii, where on the Ides of March in BC 44, Julius Caesar was stabbed to death. So now you can get up close and personal with that. Okay. The Colosseum, we got to talk about the Colosseum. Recently, Rick and us researchers have taken on the quest of finding less crowded, but just as historically and culturally relevant experiences in Rome. And Rick gave blanket permission for visitors to skip the interior of the Colosseum. And I know it can feel so sacrilegious to even think about skipping it. But when you understand just how chaotic it is, and this is an example of lines when I was there in May, I think Lisa, you saw this video, and what did you tell me?
I said that's not crowded. There, you can see the pavement. There are people moving. It's not that crowded.
And when you realize on the inside it's just kind of partially intact, you might find an alternative site like the Baths of Caracalla, where you can wander in roomy comfort and get a sense for the immense size and ingenuity of Roman engineering is just as educational, arguably more appealing. And other examples of lesser known and less crowded sites that still capture those layers and history of Rome are the Forma Urbis, which I'm really hot about right now. It's a room that has a 3rd century marble map of Rome that was discovered in a building in the Forum in the 16th century. And it's just really well laid out with lots of good explanations of just what they understood the city to be in the 3rd century, how much it grew in the 16th century. And it's just really interesting and unique. And then, of course, the Capitoline Museum, which is easily as important as anything else that you might want to see in order to appreciate the grandeur of the Roman Empire, and practically empty of tourists. So this is the kind of thing that as a researcher, we love to pay attention to. And another thing along the same lines to escape the crowds, you can also consider a short journey outside of Rome to the Via Appia, the Appian Way, where you can walk along the original road that led to Rome. And I have a little video that I took when I was researching here. They kind of ask you to put some things together. And I was so impressed by just how empty it was, how peaceful it was.
You let me know. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Hi everyone, it's Robyn from Rick Steves. I'm here in Rome, and today I'm out on the Appian Way, the ancient and most important road built in 312 BC, connecting Rome to nearby Naples and eventually on to Brindisi. And you can, Lisa, you could hear the birds chirping, right? Like, when have you been in Rome when you can hear the birds chirping like that? And just, again, spectacular to think about who else walked on those roads, because that was the road.
And I want to raise my glass to you as a researcher, because I know how hard it is to make videos for social media for Monday Night Travel when you're out there doing your other job. So thank you.
Chin chin.
Chin chin. So tonight we're having an Italian wine, of course. We're having Valpolicella, and it is DOC, so Denominazione di Origine Controllata, which means that it is guaranteed to be of a high quality. But this is from the Veneto region, so this is from my portion of the show. What do you have over there, Robyn?
Well, we have a nice assortment of some Italian cheeses. I think we did a Pecorino Romano and a Taleggio.
I'm sorry, people.
With some nice crackers. And I was just in Tuscany getting to enjoy some of the fine wines in Chianti and Bulgari. So it's kind of nice to switch it up and go to a different region for this evening's show.
Okay, well,
Okay.
we had a nice little break, but we must
Go on the
continue
show mouse
on. Here. Yes,
there.
thank you.
Correcto.
Glad you're here.
Okay, and just as a bonus, one last thing to add about the Appian Way is you get to pass by another engineering marvel, the aqueduct that brought water to all those beautiful fountains in Rome. So I highly recommend taking an afternoon, going out there. There's a lot of things to do and see, and you just get to like have a moment to marvel. I love that. I mentioned the new entry option in St. Peter's Church, and no doubt it is the most significant Catholic church in Rome. But I like to remind people that there are other moving religious sites in Rome. And one example is St. Peter's in Chains. And this was built to house the chains of St. Peter's. And it features Michelangelo's Moses, which was meant to adorn the tomb of Pope Julius II. So another like lesser crowded Michelangelo you can go see. You can also visit St. Paul's outside the walls. It's actually part of the Vatican, but it's on the southern edge of the city. And here, according to Christian tradition, St. Paul was buried. And recently, forensic experts have concluded that the bones that are under the altar do date back to the 1st or 2nd century. So it's kind of like, ooh, that's a really interesting, uplifting faith moment. And it also has a pretty impressive 13th century mosaic dome, and it's said to be done by the same craftsman who decorated St. Mark's in Venice, which you might talk about in a little bit.
Before you go on, sharp-eyed viewers will notice that we have not one, not two, but three Byzantine mosaic domes in the show tonight.
Well, there you go.
It was a coincidence.
Trivia. And then this is the thing that I'm most excited to share with people as my kind of discovery, and I didn't discover it, but it was part of my assignment. Part of my assignment is to go do everything that we have listed in the book. And sometimes when you're on tour and you're just doing the same two things all the time, the Vatican or the Forum or the Colosseum, you don't have time to go visit some of the other really cool things that we have listed in the book. And that's one thing I enjoy so much about researching. So I was visiting the catacombs of Priscilla in northern Rome. And you can only visit by a guided tour, and that's in order to access the catacombs and make sure no one gets lost because they're quite large. But the catacombs likely originated as a place for Christians to meet and worship in secrecy. And they contain one of the earliest known representations of Virgin Mary and baby Jesus, which you're actually seeing on the screen here. It might look a little Rorschach-y to you, but if you look hard, you can see Mary and baby Jesus. She's kind of on the right side. And this made such an impact on me when I was there, because when we think of the New Testament Bible stories from today's perspective, they're 2,000 years old. But at the time of these catacombs in the 2nd century, these were practically brand new. And I think more than anything, religious or not religious, I think this is just one example of how something doesn't have to be famous in order to be moving, and vice versa. I like to say that just because something's famous, it doesn't mean you'll necessarily be moved by it, but you can be. Yeah.
I think that's so well said. I'm gonna stop this screen share so we can be large again, because we're gonna talk next about hotels in Rome. And you had one particular hotel that you wanted to share.
I did. And this is an example of when you get your research assignment, they make all the reservations for you, and you can't sleep everywhere because you only have so many nights. But in this case, I got to sleep somewhere pretty unique, and I would like to share it with you.
Hi everyone, it's Robyn from Rick Steves. I'm coming to you from Rome, where I'm busily updating our guidebook, helping you plan your next great adventure. Now, after a long day of hard work hitting the pavement in Rome, I look forward to coming back to a very quiet, nice, comfortable place I can lay my head. Tonight, I'm staying at something kind of unique. I'm staying at a convent. This is the Casa Santa Brigida in the Piazza Farnese. It's centrally located, it's quiet, it has everything that I need, and it even came with a ticket to attend the papal audience tomorrow morning. I hope to see more of you later. Ciao!
Yeah, and it was just so cool to have all the nuns flittering around. It's just a very different experience.
I've never done that. I've never stayed
It's
at a
worth trying.
convent
It's worth
because
trying.
I was always terrified of the curfews. But
Some have curfews. This one did not. And I was kind of surprised at the way that some of the other people staying there were acting. I thought, oh, maybe I wouldn't act that way at a convent.
oh.
But we do have several listed in our guidebook, so as an alternate accommodation, definitely worth checking out.
That is a good location though. Okay.
It's a brilliant location.
hold the phone. This one.
It is.
Mhm.
Yeah. So moving on from hotels, I'm going to explain to you that you're always going to eat well in Italy. And Rick in particular did a major overhaul of all of the eating options in Rome for this new edition. And this is just an example of Rick's research notes to himself and the lineup he had for visiting a dozen restaurants or so in one night. And it's fun because then you kind of loop around back to the one you like the most, and that's where you actually get to eat. Because again, you can't eat everywhere, but you can get a really good idea of how a restaurant is by how many people are there, what do the plates look like, what's the vibe like. And at the end of everything, we have a really nice mix that highlights kind of a mix of traditional and modern. All characteristic places and we are featuring more outlying neighborhoods such as Sestaccio, Trastevere, along with Rick's favorite neighborhood, Monte. And we're also including more street food options, some of the lesser known markets like the Mercato Centrale in Termini with over a dozen food stands. And this one's a lot of fun too, very vibrant. And no matter what you have on your itinerary, make sure you leave time to soak in the magic of Rome's floodlit, fountain-filled squares, Like my favorite, the Campo di Fiori, which is a fruit, vegetable, and edible souvenir market by day and gathering place by night. Or, ooh, very close runner-up, my second favorite, Piazza Navona, with its trio of Baroque fountains, people-friendly square, and it's been a happening place since ancient times. And at night, this becomes a prime location for street entertainers, outdoor dining, people watching, and Rick's new favorite restaurants, which are in the book. And also be sure to enjoy modern life. After all, Rome wasn't built in a day. It wasn't a city that was ever destroyed and rebuilt. And instead, much of its charm is that it is truly a living, breathing city that's both ancient and contemporary. And our local guides like to describe it like a lasagna, with layers of the past not mixed together, but added on top of one another. And Lisa, I think we just like to call it La Dolce Vita, enjoying that sweet life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Robyn.
You're certainly welcome.
Okay, so you put together a lot of information and it generated a lot of questions that Ben is sending me. So thank you for putting your questions in the Q&A. I'm going to head a few hours north to Florence, which is the capital of the region of Tuscany, and then I'm going to go on to Venice. So I'm going to highlight a few must-sees in each location and then talk about the new book and a few things that aren't in the book, that I did myself this year that I wanted to share with our viewers because I really enjoyed it. So first must see. Okay, Michelangelo's statue of David at the Accademia Gallery. I do not care that there is a replica in the main square. There's probably 2 or 3 other replicas around the city. The masterpiece is worth seeing in person. And as a side note, one of the things I really like about the Accademia Museum, it's very small. You can budget an hour for this museum and be in and out, but also they have really lovely wooden benches around the outside. And so I will sit there and gaze at him down the hallway, and it just never fails to move me. So I think that is something you need to see in person. The Uffizi Gallery has the best collection of Renaissance art in existence. So if that floats your boat, check this museum out. Here are just a few of the masterpieces that you would see. You would have the Annunciation by Leonardo da Vinci with mathematical tricks that make the perspective move as you move from side to side. Botticelli's Birth of Venus. Michelangelo's only surviving painting in its original frame, the Donitondo, or the Holy Family. And to me, the last thing that I would say that is a must-see is a good walking tour. So you can use our free app, Audio Europe, which is convenient if you want to not have to make a reservation for anything or join a group, do it at your own pace. But you can also hire one of the guides that we list in all of the guidebooks, or you can join a group tour. So it just kind of depends on what your resources are. But another thing that they might show you, or that I like to recommend, and I know Robyn is very interested in this, there are over 100 wine windows in Florence. This one that Martina is pointing to is on the Via del Belidone, right in the center of town. Wine windows originated in the Middle Ages for businesses to sell wine directly to consumers, thus avoiding some of the taxation, but also were particularly useful during plague. And the wine windows came back into vogue during COVID. So they're enjoying a resurgence all around town. And sometimes they don't sell just wine. Sometimes they sell coffee or gelatos, such as this one, which is across town at Vivoli's, which has been a gelateria that we have recommended for, since I've worked here, so over like 25 years. And this is something that I'm very excited about because Florence always has an ever-changing art restoration scene. This is our new favorite sort of hack. So in this city bursting with precious art and centuries-old buildings, you may find that an occasional chapel or painting or building is under restoration and off view. So that's just a fact of life when you're traveling around. But to make the most of this inconvenient closure, check and see if the museum or the church offers paid admission to the restoration site. So most sites, and I didn't know this, I'm going to do this for sure next year. I'm so excited about it. But most sites with significant restoration projects offer the chance to get up close and personal with the frescoes, mosaics, or paintings being restored. Usually it's very inexpensive, €2 to €6 per person. The visits are usually guided or at least escorted, and some involve climbing scaffolding. So you'll get a fascinating peek at restoration techniques, which is one of the things that the city of Florence is top of the world for. They are some of the best art restorers anywhere in the world. So, and you may even get a better look at the art than you would be if the piece was on display. So we have Byzantine style mosaic dome number 2. So this is the one that I'm going to try for sure next year. The baptistry in Florence is under renovation for a few years, but you can book a restoration tour and climb the scaffolding and see this up close. So I'm definitely going to check that out. Now, the other thing that's fairly new in Florence, it's new, it happened this year. The Vasari corridor opened this year. So I took a tour, and you have to go through the Uffizi Museum, but it goes from the Uffizi Museum to the Boboli Gardens. And I did it so you don't have to, which will give you a secret insight as to what I thought about. So we're going to do an almost blow-by-blow description so you can feel like you've seen it. So you have to book a Uffizi ticket, which you should. I think I tried to show you some of the things that you would see at the Uffizi. But then you have a timed entrance, and you meet your small group in this little waiting room that I'm showing on the screen. But what's important for you to remember at this point, if you do it, and again, I'm not recommending it, but if you do it, remember, you're not coming back into the Uffizi. You're going to end up across the river. So you can see here that the corridor is an elevated passageway from the Uffizi, or offices of the ruling Medici family, across the Arno River above the Ponte Vecchio, or Old Bridge. So you can see that going across the river. And they were in the process when I went in May of adding busts into the hallway, so they're wrapped up, so they look shrouded. But I'm showing you all these pictures because I hoped this would be super cool and interesting, and it was not. Even to 2 tour guides who really love history, like you think, but no, not really. So while you're in the passageway, and you have 2 minders, they were young women when I was there, one in the front and one in the back. You go down the passageway, you can stop and look out the window, see the jewelry stores on the Ponte Vecchio. And there is a viewpoint along the way where the Medici would go to Mass without having to go inside the church technically. Now, the most interesting thing that happened to us is there was a wedding that day. And so even though our 2 minders were trying like the devil to get us to keep moving, there was no way. I took a 5-minute video of this. So we stood there for over 5 minutes waiting for the bride to come out. And they're like, we got to go. And I'm like, no, we basically revolted until we saw the bride. So that picture is for you, but I cannot guarantee that there will be a wedding going on if you do this. And then we popped out across the river at the Boboli Gardens, and the whole thing, without us stopping for the wedding, would have lasted about 15 to 20 minutes. So I did not consider that to be worthwhile, but I share it with you. The Uffizi Gallery, worthwhile. Boboli Gardens, worthwhile. Passageway in the middle, not important. I would rather have spent my time poking around the Oltrarno neighborhood, the other side of the Arno River, seeing craftspeople, or just enjoying a less touristy slice of Florence. This very sweet artist and her dog have a workshop right around the corner from the Santo Spirito Square, which has great restaurants, market in the morning, and a very relaxed vibe. But now the sun has set on Florence, and we head to Venice.
You love a good sunset.
I do love a good sunset. Venice, you want to think about this before you even go, because Venice has implemented an access fee in an effort to control the crowds who come into the city. And it's on the dates above for 2026, so you can easily find this on their website. It's pretty easy to deal with online, and people who are staying the night at a hotel, they don't have to pay, but they still do have to register and get a QR code because they could be stopped by the sort of fare inspectors anywhere. All of the details are in our guidebook.
And there are no turnstiles. This is just like a control. If you get stopped, you have to show the QR code.
Yes. So Venice has a delightful airport that I flew into this year, and they're getting ready for the Winter Olympics next year. So I had to take a picture of that. But there are several ways to get in between the airport and town. So Rick, when he went with his favorite travel partner, Shelley, they took a water taxi, which is a fun and efficient way, but expensive to get to or from the airport and not good for your hairstyle
No.
either, I imagine. There's the Alla Laguna speedboat, which is a shuttle between the airport and several prescribed stops around Venice. So the water taxi is about 150. The Alla Laguna, if I remember correctly, details are in the book, but if I remember correctly, is around 20, 22. And then you have the option to take a bus with wheels from the airport over to the mainland and then get on the water bus. That's probably the most affordable option, and that's going to be $9.50 for the Vaporetto, and the bus ticket I think was like
Probably a couple
maybe
euros.
€2.
Yeah.
So that's possible, and that would probably be the second fastest way to go. But what I did this year was, to me, revolutionary. So I did something I'd never done before, and it was the fastest I've ever gotten to my hotel. It was also the easiest I've ever gotten to my hotel, and I learned about it from my hotel. Now, this only works if you are in one neighborhood, but I happen to love sleeping in the Dorso Duro neighborhood. So I took a taxi, a regular taxi with wheels from the airport all the way around to the San Basilio station near the old cruise terminal, and they dropped me off, and that was 45 euros. And then I walked 5 minutes along a pretty easy path. Maybe I went over 2 bridges, but they actually had the ramps for my rolling bag, so that was nice. So I walked 5 minutes to my hotel, and I loved it, and I will 100% always do that if I'm staying in that neighborhood. So while you're in Venice, I said I would talk about must-sees. I think your first morning in Venice, you should join a group walking tour or hire your own private guide, again, depending upon your resources. With a reservation in hand, I would visit the Byzantine St. Mark's Basilica. It's a fascinating church made up of styles and materials from all over the Venetian Empire. I have heard it the style is called early ransack. And I've always appreciated that. But what time of day should you go? You want to make your reservation for around 11:30 because that is when they illuminate the church with special spotlights and the golden mosaics just sparkle. And then perhaps for the rest of the day, wandering around the island using your guidebook, remembering it's an island and you can't get off. You can get lost, but you can't get off. So either your first or second night, one of the other things that's really highly recommended is to enjoy a Grand Canal cruise. So using our Audio Europe app that is totally free, this is a guided tour that uses public transportation, the Vaporetto. And it starts at the train station, and you want to try and grab those open air seats in the front if possible, or the open air seats in the back like the gentleman that Rick ran into in the previous picture. Now, here I am on the Vaporetto, and the Vaporetto, the bus boat that you use to get around Venice once you're there. And I am so happy looking because I have just used Tap to Pay to grab this boat. So there was a boat leaving in like 2 minutes. I didn't have to wait in line. I just with my watch, that's the noise that I make whenever I'm in Italy. And I'm like, they say, do you want to pay for something? And I go, and they go, yes. And I go, oh, okay, that's it's very important to speak. Yeah, to speak hand gestures. So I was very excited to be on this Vaporetto, just jumping on. But then my boss, our boss, who is very good at this sort of thing, he took a picture of himself illustrating this point better than I could and making the point that if you use the same credit card every time you take a boat, it will max out or cap at the daily pass rate, meaning that you'll never have to pay more than the price of a daily pass, no matter how many boat rides you take. Now, again, I love using my watch to pay because there are pickpockets in Venice, a lot of them. I sat near the Accademia Bridge for a while and watched these 3 women, And what they were doing is they were standing at the ticket machine, probably offering to help people buy their tickets. I couldn't hear exactly what they were saying. I wasn't that close, but I sat there for like 20 minutes and that was all they were doing. So it was pretty obvious that they were up to no good. But by using the tap to pay, you completely avoid this situation. Now, I want everyone to be warned about pickpockets, but I also want everyone to know, especially solo women travelers, which we are all the time, that I feel exceedingly safe walking around Venice, even late at night. The only danger I have ever been in was when I saw George Clooney, who is here. If you can see my cursor, he's here. I saw him in a boat the night before his wedding, and I almost fell into the canal gawking at him. So
Wow.
let that be a lesson. But other than that, I mean, I feel perfectly safe in Venice. How do you feel walking
Oh,
around?
I feel perfectly safe, but it depends on how long I've spent at Lavena Bar
Oh.
before. If you know, you know.
If you So for choosing a neighborhood to sleep in, again, I love the Dorso Duro neighborhood. It's a bit off the beaten path. I've highlighted it on this map. So you can see that it's on the
It's in the belly.
It's in the belly. It's in the belly of it's like salmon belly.
It's in the
Yes.
belly of the fish.
It's in the belly of the fish. So St. Mark's is over here, the Rialto's over here. But the Dorso Duro is a beautiful mix of student life, residential, still convenient to things. I really enjoy it. So I wanted to show you a little bit more about the Dorso Duro. This is a typical street in the neighborhood. Like I said, very residential, pretty quiet. You might also find yourself strolling by one of the last gondola workshops. And the woodworkers that make the gondolas by hand, they originally came from the Dolomites, so that's why their building has a little alpine flavor to it with the dark wood and the flower boxes. And this is the hotel that I stayed at in October, and you'll see why I fell in love with it in the next video.
Yola, yola, la gondola. Punto de intermedio.
Oh, whoops, I don't want it to go there yet. So I'm showing this video because it illustrates two interesting points that not everyone who visits Venice knows about. One, not all gondoliers sing, so you have to shop around and negotiate a singing gondolier. Or if you just want like one song, maybe you just say, hey, do you happen to sing? Or if you go to one of the bigger gondola places around town, they can actually hire musicians for you. So that was one thing. The other thing is you might notice that this video is not very clear. It's because there's a screen on the window.
What?
Yes, exactly, Robyn. This is the first screen I have ever seen on a window in Venice, and it is a rarity. So, but what is nice is that I slept with my window open that night and I didn't have to worry about mosquitoes because I always travel with mosquito repellent when I'm going to Venice and Florence because they're there. So, this is something that you might consider an important part of your packing list. The other thing that I want people to know who are traveling to Venice, and I don't feel this is the same in Florence, but reservations are almost a must if you want to eat well in Venice, for dinner specifically. This is one of my favorite restaurants that I don't get into too often because I'm not good at making reservations when I'm tour guiding because I never know, am I going to be free? Is something going on? So when you're a tour guide, your time is not really truly your own. But this is called La Zucca. And it is especially great if you are a vegetarian or if you're just not into seafood and you really are craving some vegetables at that point. I would say if you want to get into this restaurant, you should be making reservations 2 or 3 weeks in advance. So the Zucca restaurant specializes in seasonal dishes and vegetable heavy dishes. Now this, Robyn should recognize.
I do.
Because this is a Ristorante al Giubaggio, and that would be my top pick for dining waterside in Venice. You know, we ate there many, many years ago.
10 years ago.
And I still have the picture of my lobster tagliolini with strawberries. So this is not in the dorso duro. This is way on the opposite side of the fish, almost on the back
On
of
the spine.
yeah, of the fish. But aljubajo, that is in the book. Lazuka is not in the book because it's a little bit off the beaten path. And then perhaps one of my favorite casual, and I've mentioned this on Monday Night Travel before, don't need a reservation places is Al Nono Risorto. And I love it because it's got a garden to eat in, friendly waiters, good grub, and I don't have to have a reservation, so I do tend to eat it there. So my friends and I, in the picture and in
Real life.
raise a glass to you and thank you for joining us on our Blitz through Italy.
Here, here. Thank you, Lisa.
So we now have a little bit of work to do. Here, you take this one.
This one, okay.
We have the word from our sponsor. So the word from our sponsor tonight is the new guidebooks, Rome, Florence, and Venice.
And Naples the Amalfi Coast. I was facing
I'm
up.
so mean to you.
I know.
I should tell you I'm going to do that. Patty wants to know, did you go through the holy doors?
No, I haven't been to the holy doors.
I
I'm
have.
lucky.
I went through them in 2000.
Okay.
And I did not go through them together. I thought about it, but having gone to Rome five times this year, I thought, oh, I'll do it, I'll get to it. And then the last time I was in Rome in October, I went walking and I went, oh, I cannot wait in line for that.
Yeah,
So I feel kind of bad. So Eloise wants to know, guidebook researcher, are there always local guides listed for every destination in the guidebook?
No, not every destination, but the main ones, and where it makes sense to have a local helping take you through places, but not every place that we list.
But like 90%?
Oh yeah, probably 90%.
Okay. Zara wants to know, what was the name of the Greek ruins again?
Oh, Pestum, the archaeological site at Pestum. And Lisa, I wanted to say, when you were talking about the Vasari corridor, speaking of research, that is the perfect example of why researchers do it. And then we are not in the business of hyping every single thing up. This is not crowdsourcing places. This is our honest opinion. And I actually haven't read what the honest opinion is in the book, but based on your experience, what I would write as a researcher is it might be a great way to connect the Uffizi and Boboli if you're going to go there anyway. What a great add-on to do it. But in and of itself, the site might only be interesting to people who want to make that connection. So
yeah, that's a good one. Ruth Ann wants to know, are there photography restrictions in the Vatican museums?
no, in the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
And then in other places, it's typically no flash and no selfie sticks.
Thank God, they're dangerous. Paula wants to know, what is your favorite gelato flavor?
Second portion, please.
Second portion, please?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I want another one.
Oh, okay. I think that's one of the things that it's really fair to say about gelato is the portions are small and you can get routinely, you can get 2 flavors and it's the size of one Baskin-Robbins scoop. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll answer the second portion, please. My favorite gelato flavors depend on the temperature. So if it's under 80, 85, I'm going to go with cream-based flavor. I'm going to go with coffee, hazelnut. Yeah, coffee and hazelnut.
Stracciatella?
No.
Okay. I like a good chocolate mint. I like variegated Nutella. I like cream caramel. I like cioccolato fondante. De Medici.
Mm-hmm. And if you go in the fall, I would say canella is cinnamon.
Oh, canella is amazing. It's so hard to find. But if you ever find it, I make like a gelato bingo board. So I can scratch off all my gelato flavors. And canella is always on there. And it's the hardest one to find, but it tastes like the inside of a cinnamon roll.
Yeah, you can't get it. Yeah. I think a lot of it's seasonal. You can't get it in the spring. But if it's over 85, no cream, all fruit flavors. Yeah. So limone, melone, frutti di Bosco is my husband's favorite. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that means wild fruits of the forest. Paula, that was a good question because it really got us thinking.
I don't think I had to think that hard.
Let's see. Okay, we have time for a few more. Oh, Zara wants to know, it's a good question. Are the convent stays for couples also or only singles?
Yep, for couples or singles. And like Lisa was alluding to earlier, some have different rules. So this one that I stayed in, it didn't have any rules about curfews, but I just remember there was a group of, I don't know where they were from. They were not American. They were speaking some other European language, and they were like very loud and probably had been drinking. And I just thought, oh, that's not what I would expect the people who stayed like they should have been in a hostel kind of. But clearly they were there, no rules. So yeah.
I do. I mean, so the name of the convent was Casa Santa Brigida. Brigida.
Yeah.
Brigida. Why do I want to say it like
I don't know.
Saint Bridget. In English, it's Saint Bridget.
Yeah.
Say it again correctly.
Brigida.
Brigida. Fantastic location. She said Piazza Farnese, right around from the Campo dei Fiori. But that was one of the other questions was what was the name of that? So we snuck in 2 answers there. Let's see. Rob, any suggestions for a day trip from Florence?
Yeah, a million. I mean, one of the ones that we now have in the book is Volterra. So that is an excellent day trip. You got Siena, you've got Pienza. What else would you?
Ferrara.
Orvieto, Ferrara.
Yeah.
It depends on what you're interested in, and I mean, you could even do Lucca. It's not far
You
by
could technically
train.
even do Rome with a high-speed
You
train. It's 90
could.
minutes
You
each
could.
way. So Florence is very central and it has a great transportation hub.
Yeah, and it depends on if you have a car, if you want to do a day trip, an organized day trip. If you just want to go by public transportation, you could do Pisa.
Pisa's
But
a
it
good
depends
one.
on what you're interested in. Like I said, I just got back from Tuscany, spending a week in Tuscany, and did a lot of trips to wineries in Chianti and Bulgari. So you could do just about anything.
I would say the one that I would not recommend, even though I know that it's possible, is I wouldn't go to the Cinque Terre.
Oh no, not for
Day.
today.
It's
Not worth it. Yeah.
Way too crowded. It's way too much because it's not one town, it's 5 different towns.
Yes.
And I would rather spend the night there. Okay, we're going to go with the last question. What is your favorite place in Italy? George asks.
So I always say like you're either a Rome person or a Florence person, and there's no judgment. It's just sort of the same as at a dessert buffet table. Would you rather have a piece of cake or a piece of pie? There's nothing wrong or right about either one. I'm a Rome person. I absolutely love. Don't open your mouth at me
Sorry,
like that. I
sorry,
love
sorry.
Rome. I just think that it's so lived in and it's so just ancient and modern at the same time. I'll never get tired of it. And it's not even seeing the major sites. It's all the stuff that's not major sites that makes me enjoy it.
I really love how you like cut that down. You're either a Rome person or a Florence person. And I was like, oh, she's a Rome person. Excellent, because I am a Florence person. For sure. It is very walkable. It has the best art, the best food, the loudest Vespas, and the best shopping. So hands down for me, Florence. But now that's fantastic. We've given you both options. So thank you all very much for joining us this evening. I hope you will join us next week when Gabe gives his trip report on Paris and Provence, and I will be behind the scenes corralling your questions for his Q&A. And otherwise, please join us for any of our shows that are coming up over the next few weeks. Yeah, before our Christmas break.